Innsmouth, stranger.
Hi, I'm Rob Whiten from the Innsmouth Book Club. Join me and my fellow guide John Chadwick as we take you on a fortnightly tour of Innsmouth. We visit places such as the Picture House, the Library and Innsmouth Museum to discuss all aspects of weird fiction, whether it be book, film, music, TV or art. As well as that, we stop over at the Gilman House to have a chat with a resident guest. That includes authors, artists, musicians, in fact Lovecraftian creatives of all types. You can find our free shows on Patreon, and there you can also sign up as a patron, which brings you bonus content, plus a monthly PDF copy of Innsmouth News, which features articles, author spotlights, all the latest news and reviews, and more. You can find us at patreon.com/InnsmouthBC. We hope to see you soon, because remember, Innsmouth isn't just a place, it's a state of mind.
You're listening to KZOM, Oleander Public Radio.
I don't see it.
There it is.
Oh, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Yeah,
just
no.
starting.
It of course it's not, as soon as Dave starts to record, I am about to sneeze. So
Yes. Stop.
okay.
So you
Good
sneeze.
gravy.
And I had my hands covering my mouth really hard.
Wow, sir.
I have huge lungs. Anyhow, okay. Here we are, everyone. How's everyone doing this week?
Doing good.
Doing good.
The
All
me
right.
part of everyone is doing well.
Good, good. I'm not too shabby myself. It's been so rainy and really nice and chilly and good tea weather, or good chilly weather even. But
Chili and tea.
yeah, I had to put on like pants and shoes. I mean, I was wearing shorts and sandals, not saying I was just Donald Ducking it around the house or anything, but you know.
But you're not saying that, right?
No. I am saying I was not Donald Ducking it around the house.
Okay. All right.
I'm pretty much a never nude, so you know.
I'm never nude.
But yeah. So it's been nice. It's been really kind of cloudy. Last weekend it was so hot, and then as soon as the weekend was over, it got cloudy and rainy, and it was so nice. I had a really good weekend last week at the Vancouver Wine and Jazz Festival, Esther Shore Park. It was really, really nice. Got to see a lot of cool music and sold a bunch of cool little dragon plasticky guys. Yeah. Dave, how's everything out on the farm?
Farmy.
Oh, cool. Glad to
Farmy.
hear that.
So if this is inappropriate, you can edit it out.
I never do.
But we had kind of a miracle. It's not a miracle. It's sort of an unusual situation.
Okay.
We had a goat who had never given birth and who had never been mated start milking,
Oh, okay.
which it happens once in a while in animals. It happens once in a while in goats, but it's never happened at this farm.
Oh.
Okay.
And it just, so if a goat has ever given birth or milked, then their udder just, it swells up like a bag. You can always tell if a goat's ever had a child.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, this goat just filled up with milk without any, without ever having a baby. And we've sent it to a lab. But, you know, like I said, it happens. It's just rare. And nobody here has ever seen it happen, but we've heard of it.
Okay.
Wow.
Interesting. Huh.
I wonder why.
Gnomes.
Gnomes? I just assume it's like that whole sometimes mimicry and like animals do and for Pac-Man town. I don't know.
Yeah.
I could pretend.
Yeah, I think that there's just conditions that happen that the body, you know, the goat's body thinks happen. Maybe next week I will give you a scientific explanation. But
Or it
other
could be
than
like that movie Black Sheep, right? Where like, wasn't that where like the horror? Isn't that the one where the sheep are infected with like the zombie virus or something like that?
I missed that one.
You guys haven't
Yeah.
seen that? Oh,
No.
goodness.
That's the one with Chris Farley and David Spade, right?
No. It's like it's an Australian horror film, or like New Zealand horror film. I almost want to think it was a Jackson film.
Uh-huh.
Hang on, let me look it up. Let's see.
All right.
Goats or sheep zombies. We're doing this real time.
That might give me nightmares.
Black Sheep 2006. You can watch it on Tubi.
All right.
It is a New Zealand film directed by Jonathan King. And basically, they are genetically altered sheep that prey on humans and turn their victims into the undead woolly killers. Sheer
Whoa.
madness ensues.
Whoa, that sounds pretty cool. That sounds
And
pretty.
sheer is spelled SHEAR.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Gretchen, what have you been up to this week? Anything fun?
This last week, no, I had a service, but other than that, I did not do anything. I was pretty much just kind of like, let me just be down for the count. It was my down weekend. But
Okay.
this
Well, that's
coming
good
weekend,
for you.
I've got a bunch of stuff going on, like going to that Halloween swamp meet at the Oaks Amusement Park, and
Oh,
then
wow.
there's an art show tomorrow evening at the Nucleus Gallery. It's a Japanese artist, Kira Imari.
Very cool.
Yeah, she's like a Lolita artist. So my little community is getting together, dressing up.
Nice.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. All right. So this week we're talking about two groups of people that that like to consume other parts of other people.
Yeah. I mean, that's
with-
pretty much the only, like, I feel like that's the only crossover there.
Oh yeah. Let's see what else. Dave, do we have a middle part this week?
Yes, we are interviewing author who does primarily Western horror, but a few other things, and his name is C. Derick Miller.
Oh, cool. Very cool. All right. Nice. Yeah, we're talking about the Tcho-Tcho in the first part. And the second part, we're talking about 1983's The Hunger, not the Hunger Games, which my TV kept wanting me to watch those. And I'm like, no, I want to watch this one. And they're like, hey, did you know about these movies? And I'm like, yeah, no. I don't care about Katniss ever shoot or whatever. I do want to see Hunger. But yeah, The Hunger. We'll be talking about that after the interview. And yeah. And I'm guessing that this is a Gretchen pick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Everything about this movie says, hey, this is a movie Gretchen really liked when she was either really young or she discovered it and went recently and went, this is my jam.
I was really young.
All right. Okay, cool. All right. So, okay, now we got to talk about the Tcho-Tcho.
The Tcho-Tcho.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Tcho-Tcho. They're near human, Asian-looking people that are short in stature, bright red skin. Creation of August Derleth and Mark Schorer.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dave, what do we know about the Tcho-Tcho?
So, in a lot of ways, this wasn't an easy one for me, and I think it made it more difficult.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start off with the cool part.
Okay.
And that is the lair of the Star Spawn.
Okay.
I like this story.
Yeah.
It is like one of my favorite Derrilla stories.
Uh-huh.
Although the more I read it, it doesn't hold up. It's not one of those stories, the more I read it, the more I like it.
Yeah.
And also includes at the ending the Star Warriors, which basically look like an electrified version of the Carl's Jr. Star logo with eyes and stuff, and they ride cigar-shaped space motorcycles. That
Oh,
is both the coolest and silliest thing in the entire mythos.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
And it is definitely a good versus evil story.
interesting.
And so this is where we get the introduction to the Tcho-Tchos.
Hmm.
And so, and it's like I said, it's a good, solid story.
Yeah.
Why? You got one Cthulhu stuck under an island. Well, I got two baby Cthulhus stuck under ruins.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and the Tcho-Tcho sort of they change as the stories go on.
Sure.
But this version, they are basically, I'm pretty sure they are Burmese.
Hmm.
This takes place in Burma, and a lot of problems that it would be an amazing story if it was created in a vacuum,
Hmm.
but it comes from a time in the pulp culture where it is full of yellow peril tropes.
Yes.
And that really does kind of bring down the story to me.
Hmm.
Now,
Hmm.
credit where Derek goes. There is a strong, powerful, brilliant Chinese character here
Hmm.
in the
Hmm.
story. Um, so not all. It's not Fu Manchu.
Yeah.
It's not even say Howard Skullface, which I love as a story, but it's got some offensive things in it.
Hmm.
But it comes from and played into a pulp tradition of yellow peril.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. And I want to say it's like this is one of the instances where something's taken from a book, turned into an RPG, and is just like progressively made kind of ickier and the further on it goes. Like a lot of the times, it's like things get more life breathed into them. You get more details. You find out what its name is, or like the gaming company gives it a name. But I feel like the more and more Tcho-Tchos have been introduced, except for within like the last 10 years, last 5 years, have it's been this yellow peril kind of like, well, we're just doing it because we're emulating the pulp books from back then.
Blech.
It's okay.
Unacceptable.
Yeah. Well,
And,
the gaming
and-
industry's changed, thankfully, but
yeah, and I don't. I don't think it's wrong to have an Asian villain
nope,
necessarily.
No,
In
not
fact,
necessarily.
I have a friend, and she tells me that her feminist awakening came reading the best feminist book ever was Gone Girl. And I
okay.
go, what? And she goes, because the main character is a female asshole. Not a C word, not a B word. She said that character was an evil, terrible, rotten person who just happened to be female.
Yeah.
So, yes, if written, you can have good African American, good Asian, whatever type of villains,
Hmm.
but they're not, again, they're not in a vacuum.
This to me feels like, okay, remember when people were first introduced to the idea of like, for lack of a better term, like pygmy cannibals and things like that?
Hmm.
That's what I feel like these creatures are like kind of based off of.
Yeah.
Like the fear of those tribal people can be cannibalistic and consume me, and like my poor white savior skin. I don't
Yeah.
know. I just hate it. Like I tried reading some into this and I kind of stepped away, and I figure I'll let you guys take the lead on this because you know more about it and know more about like where it's coming from.
Mhm.
And honestly, I don't even know how August Derleth is. I'm sorry. I just discovered who they are like
Yeah.
through this.
Yeah.
Because
So-
to me, like this is such a great departure of like actual Cthulhu mythos. Like I feel like these guys aren't even like they don't even have the vibe or any kind of that. I mean, and like even if they're supposed to be kind of like the men of Lang and the Dreamlands, I don't even see that
No.
either, because to me that's just like we're just lumping.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think, and believe me, I put my lumps on Derleth.
Mhm.
I have no problem calling Augie out. Now,
Oh,
what
yeah.
he did do, and we'll give credit to credit, he's the one who created Arkham House.
Mhm.
He's the
Mhm.
one that
Oh,
saved
is
all
that-
the Lovecraft stories. Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, someday we'll go off, and I say my things about Derleth, you know.
Yeah.
But at least in Starspawn, I think he just wanted to write an adventure story.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, but they didn't
and
have to be a
in the
racist.
1930s, Burma was as good as any place.
Yeah, I get it. Like, and I mean, yeah, I get it. Yeah.
A lot of what comes though afterwards, you may want to edit this out because
Yeah.
I'm going to make a lot of people angry. And I love this, I absolutely love it, but it comes from Delta Green.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. So
It's a RPG.
So
Okay.
it's basically Cthulhu meets the X-Files.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's the reason anyone knows who Scott Glancy is.
Well, I mean, yeah, but
Scott was a major contributor, and Scott, I'm not putting you down in any way, because I don't know how much of the Tcho-Tcho, and so stuff like the Tcho-Tcho's DNA changes by what they eat.
Yeah.
You know, so that's not a bad concept. We see that. In
no,
Alien.
that's not a bad concept
That's
at
a
all.
really
I
cool
like the
concept.
idea of that, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of like a X-Files kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, they're more in Delta Green. They're more related to like frog people than humans. They're
I would
almost
like
like
to
a
see more.
yeah.
The Nere Nergi,
Yes.
which is an alien race.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So a lot of where the Tcho-Tchos became are going to come out of D20. The D20 Cthulhu has an entire chapter where it says stuff that I've never seen anything else, like the Tcho-Tcho people wear bowl cuts.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I love Delta Green. I think Delta Green is it's X-Files meets the Cthulhu mythos.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But and the Tcho-Tcho are important because they're part of the Vietnam War, and that's where Delta Green, the secret government organization, gets exposed because they basically try to eliminate the Tcho-Tcho people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, and like I said, I know that several. I don't want to offend people who I like and respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I've used Tcho-Tchos in stories,
Sure.
but T.E.D. Klein uses them in stories. I mean, I love Black Man with a Horn.
Mm-hmm.
It's just hard for me to sometimes separate what they are.
Sure.
Yeah, it's
Sure.
hard to separate the artist from the art. I mean, we see this in many different scenarios. It's hard. I get it. But apparently, the human ganglia tastes like artichokes with hot peppers. That's what I read about their delicacy, the white pork sauce.
Yeah.
People, the other white pork.
That was from Delta Green, or if that came from D20.
Oh, I believe the ganglia stuff came from Delta Green.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just love that little quip. I was like, well, okay. I mean,
Yeah.
we're gonna taste like a thing. We taste like artichokes with hot peppers. Okay, cool.
Yeah. No, it's definitely from the Delta Green book, which also has like the Tcho-Tcho infiltrating like Toronto and Chicago, and they're like set up doing a lot of like drug running and prostitution and just like organized crime, and it's like, okay, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with this interpretation either.
Yeah.
That I love Delta Green, and I
Yeah.
respect who wrote it. Maybe or maybe not a path I would have taken.
No. And people are going to say, well, it was in the 90s. And I'm like, yeah, but it still doesn't make it cool. Yeah.
So, you know where else the Tcho-Tcho are seen?
Where?
In Marvel.
Oh, that's right.
They're in, I think it's the Tomb of Dracula, Varney, which is, Varney is like the original vampire story. And he appears in the Tomb of Dracula, and he says that the Tcho-Tchos worshipped him as Zafagwa.
Okay.
And I, like I said, I doubt Roy Thomas had anything to do with this, but I love that 70s, 80s Roy Thomas sort of non-superhero Marvel.
Yeah. It's fun stuff. It is fun stuff. All right.
That's all I got on the Tcho-Tchos, my friend.
Hey, I think I'm running out of stuff too. But yeah, they don't have Cthulhu. They have Tsar and Ligor, which we've discussed on the show a few times in the past, and we'll probably discuss again.
Which are probably Cthulhu's children.
Yeah. And
say what?
Yeah.
Yo, Cthulhu is a player, man. He's got
Man, he's like Zeus. What the heck?
Exactly. But yeah, no, the Tcho-Tcho, if you want to write a story, don't give them a dumb racist backstory. Don't make them kind of like a stand-in for an actual racial group. I mean, they're
Just
the
make him a
Tcho-Tcho.
monster. Jesus.
Yeah,
Why
they're
did I have a
monsters.
race?
Yeah. I don't know. I think maybe Derleth was trying to copy Lovecraft's racism as well.
so possibly, and the fact that the the pictures in the original Amazing Stories of the Chinese scholar make him look like Fu Manchu. I really think that this was. I think that Derleth was just basically writing the equivalent of an Indiana Jones story.
Yeah.
And he just made these sort of very generic tribal people.
Okay.
And then, and like I said, I have no problems. I don't pull punches on Derleth. But I think that a lot of what came out was after.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the Tcho-Tcho. Moving on.
Hey, wait.
What?
How do they get from one place to another?
They row.
On the Tcho-Tcho train.
Oh.
Okay. Send your hate letters. I care to.
Yeah. pgttcm@gmail.com. Send us anything. Yeah.
Not anything. Don't send us.
Well, I'm the one who looks at it.
Yeah.
So.
and it wasn't. And
so don't send anything awful because DB's looking.
And I have to correct myself. Larry the Starthspawn was not published in Amazing Tales. It was Weird Tales.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's okay, David. I've said many things wrong. Like I think my first episode was like, I kept trying to say City. I kept saying City of the Dead, and it's not the movie I was talking about.
Yeah. All right. So up next, Dave's got an interview, and then after that, we are talking about 1983, The Hunger, and we'll see you after the break. Moving on to the next part, just to remind everyone, if you like what you're hearing, like this episode, share it with people, subscribe to the podcast, find us on Facebook. We're under People's Guide to the Cthulhu Mythos. We're on Twitter. I don't really check Twitter, so it's just kind of the automatic feed if you just want to listen to us on Twitter for some reason. You can find us on any place, any podcatchers that are out there. Of course, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, the YouTube, where this episode will be. And, yeah.
This episode is brought to you by California Tea House. California Tea House is a family-owned tea store where you can find some of the world's best loose-leaf tea and organic herbal tea blends. Like a fine wine, there is no comparison between fine loose-leaf and common broken-leaf tea bags. So, yeah, no, check them out. Check them out. They have quite a bit of pretty awesome tea collections. I'm a huge fan of their white teas. They have a tea club that you can join, but, you know, they've got green tea, black tea, white tea, oolong, that Robios, and herbal tea. They've also got teaware. So check out California Tea House in the show notes. I want to tell you all about something. I want to tell you about a guy I know in a place. This is Dave's Corner of the Podcast. It is awesome. It's gonna go fast. It's not the interview pod. Ha ha. Ha ha. It's not the pod where DB talks forever, ever, ever. No, it's Dave's Corner of the Podcast. Dave's Corner of the Podcast. Dave, everyone.
Hey everybody, it's me, Farmer Dave. And today, we're going to talk about something that we've kind of breached in a little bit in the past week, and that is Edward Page Mitchell, the inventor of modern science fiction. Well, not really, kind of, yes. I'll explain. So, there is no real answer to this question, although a lot of people are going to say, yes, I have the answer. And by the way, yes, I have the answer. When was the first science fiction story? And there's a lot of arguments, and, well, they're all true. Some people would say, you know, there's that Japanese legend where a fish woman comes down from the stars. Or maybe, you know, the story in Africa about fish people coming down from the stars. That's kind of weird. You know, other people say, you know, Shakespeare invented science fiction in The Tempest. Well, maybe the first, well, I don't know, maybe the first mad scientist, but, you know, that's not necessarily where I am. Others think, well, you know, Gulliver's Travels was the first science fiction story. And I kind of get it. Me, I'm pretty much, and I know this is kind of late to the party time-wise, but I've kind of marked the first modern science fiction story as Frankenstein. Definitely there's an argument to be had that, or be held, that modern science fiction really started with Verne and Wells. And I'm going to talk about somebody who comes in pretty much in between the two. And that is Edward Page Mitchell. Now, last week I talked about his story, The Backwards Clock, which is basically seen as the first of the time travel stories, predating even Twain's Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court. Now, there's somebody who's listening to this and saying, well, actually, Merlin lived his life backwards in the original King Arthur story, so he's the first time travel. Yeah, but I wouldn't really call, you know, King Arthur science fiction, even though they're supposed to be a bunch of 5th century knights running around in 15th century armor. So maybe they are science fiction, but I digress. So the stories that are written by Mitchell are just amazing and way ahead of their time. So the question comes in, why isn't Mitchell up there with Vernon Wells? That's Vern and Wells, not Vernon Wells that sounds like the leader of a cult. So last week we said that he invented the first of the time travel stories. But he also invented the first of the cyberpunk stories. Well, not really, and yes, I know that the term cyberpunk was invented by Bert Betke, and I probably will do a show on that someday. Mitchell wrote a story called The Ablest Man in the World, which is about a man whose brain is replaced with what Mitchell calls a computer, but it's basically a wind-up clockwork computer akin to Babbage's difference engine, as opposed to the computer that we think of. And he was basically a mentally impaired child, and the scientist cut off his head, made a silver screw top, and put in a computer brain. Does that or does that not sound like cyberpunk? And a traveling academic is mistaken for a doctor, a medical doctor, when this man starts having an attack and he discovers the secret. And he basically tricks the mad scientist who created it into revealing what was happening. And he realized that this guy was designed and is capable of taking over the world. In a lot of ways, this is one of the prototype supervillains. And so the scientist or the professor basically took the difference engine, put it in a bag when he was traveling back to America, and threw it in the water. And he hears this screeching, which is probably, he hopes, a seagull, but maybe something else. Now, before I went over that, I should have told you there would be spoilers. Spoilers for a story which was written 139 years ago. But it's obscure, and so that's why a lot of people may not have heard these stories. And so, yes, I should have done a much better job of putting a spoilers warning in the beginning because of that. And if I've just ruined Edward Mitchell Page for you, or Edward Page Mitchell, I'm sorry, for you, I apologize. So here's a hot piece of irony. Steampunk is basically considered, I mean, yes, you've got the Victorian writings of Wells and Verne, but modern steampunk is basically seen as being invented by Bruce Sterling and William Gibson in The Difference Engine. And I'm not sure if either one of them had read The Ablest Man in the World. I'm almost willing to bet they had. It would have been republished by that time. And so this genre-defining book that they wrote is about the same type of machinery that Mitchell wrote about, and remember, these are the two dudes that basically invented not only steampunk, but cyberpunk. Mitchell out both steampunks and cyberpunks them 100 years before they're published. Well played, sir. Well played. In another story, basically Mitchell invents faster speed of light travel, which he calls, infinite speed. And in this story, he has this man machine called an android that can do math and write poetry. Mitchell writes a story called The Crystal Man, which is about a man who turns invisible. Again, he wrote this just like he wrote, before Wells's Time Machine. He wrote this before Wells wrote The Invisible Man. He wrote a story called His Determined to Remain, which is about a ghost that is actually accidentally given a solid body by a medium, and he goes in to get revenge on a town that killed him. And kind of inspiring, and I would love to know if maybe this is where the fog came from. He's going to write a story about basically freezing a human being so that he could be revived later on. I mean, it was a story about cryogenics when the term didn't exist. He wrote stories about men teleporting before the idea of teleporting. He wrote about women getting the vote in America before women had the right to vote in the United States. It has a story in the senator's the senator's daughter. It tells a story that says, well, in the story it says that the 27th Amendment of the United States would be basically your right to, if you didn't like life, freeze yourself until you could be thought out to a period of time that was better off for you. In reality, the 27th Amendment of the Constitution basically says that the senators and congressmen can't vote for a pay increase. It kicks into the next election where they may or may not have been voted out. But that's okay. He didn't have to get it right. So why is Mitchell not better known? And I think that the reason for this is lack of circulation in his lifetime, because he published almost exclusively in the newspaper that he edited, The Sun. There are a few stories that were published elsewhere, but almost all of it was written in The Sun, or published in The Sun, and almost all of it was what appears to have been filler, that it was added to take up space, which wouldn't have been that uncommon for newspapers back then to have poems or stories or some sort of fiction to take up space. And in a lot of ways, I think Mitchell loved telling these stories. I think he loved writing them. But in a lot of ways, it was his duty as an editor of The Sun to publish them. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more and about Mitchell, why Mitchell wasn't as famous, how he did get to some degree of fame after he died, and why people in his stories often have very strange last names. But this is going to come up a little bit later. Hopefully we're going to have some interviews and we'll continue this on. But if this is something you're interested in knowing more, by all means, send us, email us, let us know, and we can definitely continue down this vein.
In Legacy Door, a lurker from space casts a shadow over time.
We opened our eyes upon the human world. We found ourselves lying on an especially yielding bed in a room displaying scattered relics of their shallow past, tied together by more recently produced items meant to blend with the relics. Typical.
A sensitive journalist dreams of unknown lives.
It seems like every time I close my eyes, they get stronger. I can't even say the last time I had a normal sleep, let alone a dreamless one.
An outspoken lawyer defends the suspect in an unspeakable crime.
And that client was Jonathan Strauss, held for the murder of his daughter Abigail and her companion Harrison Reese.
And a stalwart investigator tries to drag it all into the light.
Some of the Reeses and the Strausses have been involved with something that seems to include an obsession with bloodlines and longevity for at least decades.
Legacy Door is a weekly cosmic horror mystery podcast. An ensemble of actors tell a story, also available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. Available now.
Hey everyone, it's me, DB. New sponsor on the show, Glarry. Glarry offers a great price and better quality goods and services for music lovers. Are you looking for good prices, free shipping, 100% quality guarantee? Glarry's got you covered. Guitars, bass guitars, mandolins. They've got saxophones, trumpets, drums. They've got guitar cases, amplifiers, all the stuff that you need without having to break the bank. Inexpensive doesn't have to mean cheap. Check out the show notes to find more about Glarry. 20-watt amplifiers for under $50. Hard cases for your electric guitar for under $80. Guitars themselves for under $90. Come on, folks, check out the show notes. Get a Glarry.
This part of the show doesn't have a theme song. This part of the show doesn't have a theme song, yeah. Dave and DB and Gretchen go to the movies. Hopefully next week we'll have a real theme song, yeah.
Hey everyone, it's me, DB Spitzer, just reminding you, we've got some really cool guitars. If you want to learn how to play guitar, if you want to give the gift of guitar, we've got them. Go to the show notes, check out Glarry, and go get yourself a guitar. It helps the show. We get like 5%, so check it out, Glarry.
And you can say, when you're playing your awesome Glarry guitar, you can say, 5% of this is because of the People's Guide to Cthulhu Mythos.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Hey, everyone. We are back. Sexy vampires. Who would have thought such a thing existed? We watched 1983's The Hunger. And Gretchen, start us off on this, please.
This is the directorial debut of Tony Scott, Ridley Scott's brother, who later went on to do like completely different films. I mean, but he did some really great ones like Top Gun, obviously, but Beverly Hills Cop 2, Days of Thunder, The Last Boy Scout. He also did that movie Man on Fire. I don't know if you ever saw that with Dakota Fanning and Denzel Washington. Thank you. No. That was incredible. So, I mean, going back to like later, his films were great. So this was kind of his foray into it. It was a very artistic approach. We're starting off with a story about vampires. Miriam Blaylock and her husband John are at a goth club, and Bauhaus is playing on the stage, which I don't know if I would be able to be like distracted by the hot like couple with the onks, that I would be so busy looking at like my boy dancing. I mean, but also the best part is that you have these flashes intermittently with like this research lab, and you're seeing Dr. Sarah Roberts, who's a gerontologist, and her colleagues, and they're like dealing with the monkeys, and there's monkeys attacking each other between the switchback to the two vampires, bringing home a couple from the club. It's beautiful. It's probably like I would say like one of those films that when I saw this film, I was relatively young. I was probably in my tween years, and it had such a large impact on me. Like I had never seen a vampire film without vampires that had teeth. It was my first time seeing like something like that wasn't just a standard heterosexual vampire couple or whatever. Seeing that love triangle between like Miriam and Sarah and John, like it was such an interesting story. And it really struck me. I think that was probably part of the whole like, oh, I might actually not just be like a straight person. I might be into all the things.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, it was not to be too personal, but yeah, it's this film has so many stunning qualities. I can barely find anything I find wrong with it, just because, yeah, I mean, it's kind of has some dry sections, but I like the story that's pushing the backstory. What about you guys? What did you all?
So, can I go off on left field, please?
Go for it.
Sure.
You know who the movie is dedicated to?
Yeah.
Frank Scott.
Yep.
You know what other movie is dedicated to Frank Scott?
Who? Blade Runner, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So both these movies were made after Frank died. Frank is the third Scott brother
Yeah.
who was not in entertainment. He worked most of his life in the Merchant Marine.
Okay.
And probably got a form of very aggressive skin cancer just being out on deck all the time.
Yeah.
And Ridley describes him because he was almost more like an uncle to them because he was 15 years older than Ridley.
Mm-hmm.
And when he died, it really hit them. And Ridley opened up, especially more in the last couple decades, than Tony did. But at the same time, so they started looking for projects. And like I said, Ridley says that, he went back to Blade Runner because of Frank's death. And to me, Blade Runner has always been this essay on how atheists mourn.
Yeah.
But I can see in both of these movies were basically how they dealt with the catharsis of dealing with. And Frank was, I think he was retired, but I think he was under his 50s. He wasn't that old.
Mm.
And I think both of this, we see how, the death of their brother affected what they chose and also the final product.
Well, yeah, there's so much imagery, especially like the going into the, not to be jumping ahead into the end, but there's, the scenes where the decaying corpses are falling apart and their ashes and their remains are being scattered by doves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, that has a very like ending and rebirth look to it.
Yeah. Which is not how the book ends.
No. Have you read the book?
I'm familiar with the book.
Oh, right on.
And that's the other thing I may want to talk a little bit is about Whitley Strieber.
Mm-hmm.
So can we do spoilers?
Go for it. Yes.
And it came out in 1983.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're good.
And so the book was, in fact, I think the book was only out like a year or two before that.
I thought the book hadn't been finished. Like,
when
someone read the manuscript for The Hunger, and then it got greenlit, and the movie was written at the same time the book was, is what I read.
I think you're correct, but I think the book was actually like a year or two out before the movie was finished.
Okay, all right.
And so, to me, and this is where we get to say David is crazy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So the movie came out, 1983, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the book was published in 1981.
Okay, yeah.
To some of us, Whitley Strieber is going to always be associated with communion.
That's immediately who I think of when I think of Whitley Strieber. I think of the Communion book.
And I'm not going to, and you know what? I honestly believe that Strieber believes something happened to him. I'm not going to say it was aliens. I don't think he says it was aliens. And this came out 2 years before he said the original Contact.
Mm-hmm.
But at least me, it's hard to not watch this with this knowledge and think of them as aliens.
Yeah.
Because, the V word never comes up.
Yes.
They never say the V word.
Yeah, nobody says vampires ever.
And in the book, she is this almost Lovecraftian entity that predates humans.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's just kind of.
Isn't she Lilith in the book?
I think that was in the third book that got revealed as her persona. And again, I hadn't read the books. I've just read things that Strieber has said.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, okay, that's my left field.
Okay.
Well, there's like so much like silly trivia about this, and I don't even know how much of this is real. Like some of the stuff they say, like Ridley Scott was actually set to do the film, but with David Bowie on board, he was like, nah, he passed on it, which I don't know if that's real or not. I feel like that's probably like somebody's weird and somebody's like random interpretation of some kind of interview back in the 80s or whatnot.
Yeah.
And you and I read the same thing and had the same thoughts.
Yeah.
One of the things I heard, the reason why it went to Tony was because Tony wanted so badly to do Interview with a Vampire.
Oh, really?
And that he had so much interest in doing that or a vampire movie that the production company came to him because of that. I kind of think that's maybe a little bit more believable.
That feels right. What about you, DB? What did you think of this film?
My thoughts. Okay. So this is one of those this is one of those films that I've always seen little bits and pieces of, but it's like I've never got to sit down and watch it for some reason. And it's like, oh, this movie, okay, all right, that's what those clips are from. That's when David Bowie's dressed like this. This is the Susan Sarandon movie where she has the really short hair. That's something, takes place between Rocky Horror and The Next Time Everyone Remembers Her, Thelma and Louise. And everyone looks so damn beautiful. Just everyone looks so gorgeous. Everyone is just like filmed in this kind of like dreamy way. It's like, I don't know.
Doesn't it remind you of, and I know this is gonna, because I mean, Legend is also shot by Ridley Scott, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So doesn't this have, I don't know if they're using the same filmographer or director of photography. I didn't look that deep into the meta, but when you say that it has a dreamy quality, it reminds me of Legend, or maybe it's just that time period of film where whatever lenses people were using had kind of a slight bevel to it.
Yeah.
So everything feels like, to me, like I'm an observer through a fishbowl.
Yeah, and the worst of times, visually, it looks like Supergirl.
Oh,
okay. I have not seen Supergirl, so I'm going to take your word on it.
But the '80s Supergirl, and
I love that movie.
I know you love that movie, and I'm starting to think: do you love movies that they film in London for New York, or
maybe?
There's I mean, it's like the thing where it's like it's supposed to be America, but it's filmed in London is like something that I think gives it so much of its kind of like charm and character, like for the scenery and the setting around them. Everything is like, I don't know if they had like prop designers, or I mean if they had a props department, or if they're just like, all right, we're going to film in someone's really nice house. Don't mess it up too much. But the music I thought was amazing.
Oh my gosh, right?
Cinematography is so good, and the music is so good, and the acting is so good. But also at the same time, this feels kind of like when there's a lighting effect or a sound effect that you're like, wait a minute, did they steal that sound effect from House?
Oh, right.
It's just like you'll have a cheesy sound effect or a really bizarrely cheesy lighting effect. It's like, you guys just set up a spotlight in a room and had a bunch of people dressed crusty come out. But also it's like, it's so nice not to see CGI. It's so nice not to see like stupid morphine CGI face stuff with vampires or not vampires, and nothing was over explained. They didn't like go way overboard. It's almost kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's a Scott Brothers thing of not over explaining stuff at times and then over explaining stuff at other times. But I don't know. It's such a gorgeous, like, sexy movie, and it's like, I don't know. Everyone is, I don't want to say everyone looks the best they ever look, because that's not true. These are like, your three leads are like three insanely attractive people.
Gorgeous.
And it's like,
right.
They could have filmed, I mean, I honestly feel like Tony Scott could have filmed anything with these people and that soundtrack and these scenes, they could have been like, oh, they're bank robbers. Oh, they're accountants in a love triangle. Oh, they work at a pizza parlor. You know, I mean, well, maybe not that last one. But it's like you could do a lot of stuff with just the components for this movie. I don't know if it would come out the same, and there wouldn't be vampirism and whatnot. But it's like all the ingredients for the soup are just amazing. It's like they even got Willem Dafoe in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like tiny though. I mean, like you would have blink and you'd miss his character.
Oh, I know, but that's the secret ingredient.
Also, funny thing is, like, so you know the guy who plays Susan Sarandon's love interest in the movie,
Yeah.
the dude, her fellow doctor or whatever.
Uh-huh.
He was in the Rocky Horror Picture Show sequel.
Shock Treatment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that in forever.
Oh yeah, it's not super good, but
No,
you know,
it's not.
it's fun. No, I have to say the soundtrack really also was one of those things that was like a part of that tween influence for me, like that. I musically like knew where I was going musically. Obviously, I was meant to be a goth girl.
Mm-hmm.
That song "Fun Time" from Iggy Pop, like, was funny enough was actually I think was like written by or composed or produced by David Bowie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like that song with the roller skating and the guy getting like attacked by David Bowie's by John Blaylock, like as he's aging out, he's trying to save himself. He kills this guy roller skating to Iggy Pop "Fun Time."
Yeah.
Man, that song like sticks into your brain, and I just replay it every once in a while. I'll be like, "Fun time," like seriously.
Yes.
I love it. I love like Bela Lugosi, and I loved all the beautiful like the Flowers duet that he did with the little girl, or the young woman, I should say.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but to me, I think it was very influenced by the ethos of early MTV.
Absolutely.
Yes. Oh,
it had
yeah. No.
like a music video look to it.
Exactly. What I want to
like,
say is it. Yeah. No, I agree totally. It looks like a music video. It feels like a music video, and I feel like the low parts in it is like the parts where they didn't have like music video stuff. It's like, okay, it's going to be a little low. Maybe it's like one of those slow music videos or something, but I just always felt like it was a different music video.
One of the things also I loved about David Bowie's acting in this film is that he was kind of like, it seems like he was kind of revisioning the character they played, like from the Man Who Fell to Earth.
Yeah.
He had that kind of esoteric alien, like, but he was also a predator. So he was always looking for the next meal and whatnot.
Unlike his character in The Man Who Fell to Earth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But
one thing that I've heard too is that he was so dedicated to the role that there was a week that they shot in New York.
Yes.
That's when he did the old age things.
Yes.
And he would go out to the George Washington Bridge and for hours
scream out punk lyrics.
Songs.
Yeah.
So you get that raspy voice. I wish somebody had filmed that, because I would pay to watch David Bowie scream at the George Washington Bridge, 80s punk rock songs.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about Catherine Deneuve. I mean, man, she was gorgeous in this movie. She's still gorgeous. I mean, I don't know if she's passed away or if she's still around, but she, wow. Actually, she just did a movie, it looks like.
Yeah. So, absolutely.
Yeah.
I honestly, I like Susan Sarandon a little bit more.
Well, she's
that's
super
me.
hot.
That's
I mean,
but no, absolutely, that there is.
They had great chemistry for them actually not having any chemistry at all.
Yeah.
And apparently there's a rumor that Susan Sarandon had like an affair with David Bowie on this film.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if that's real or not, but
What But what also is that, in the book, and correct me because I'm getting that it was not consensual.
Yeah.
That Sarah was drugged. And it's Susan Sarandon that said, no, we need to make this consensual because, damn.
Yeah.
And it absolutely changes the movie for better.
Yes, definitely.
Agreed.
Yeah. Did you hear that 80s comedies?
Yeah.
Did you hear that 90s comedies and horror movies?
I did always think that the ending kind of was a little like muddled.
Yeah.
Because you got to get this impression that Susan Sarandon's character dies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, you see this beautiful, gilded young woman with long blonde hair. And she gets a kiss from this older red-haired woman. And you're like, ooh. And you realize she's still alive. And then it cuts to where Miriam's coffin and the screaming.
So that was forced on by the studio.
That was what?
That was forced by the studio, the ending.
I could see that. That's why I made it so convoluted.
Yeah. So in the original ending, the Scott is that they die, but the studio was so wanted a sequel that they forced him to add that.
Oh, well, I'm glad this didn't have any sequels. I like that it carried it. I'm a big fan of vampire movies that aren't like fangs and like everybody going. I hate that shit. I do. Don't get me wrong. I love like Bram Stoker's Dracula, like for the Francis Ford Coppola one. That's one of my favorites. And I love the Hammer stuff, but it's so silly and mundane. Whereas this to me is just poetry.
Okay. I get that. I mean, I personally make hissing noises when I go outside just because I think it's hilarious. Or when someone opens the shades and sun comes in, I'll do the, claw up my fingers, cover my face, and go. But yeah, no, I'm glad that this wasn't that kind of vampire movie. But this falls into my top 3 of vampire movies from my youth. You've got The Hunger, you've got Lost Boys, and you've got Near Dark. And that I feel like great. Just kind of like a trifecta of modern vampire movies. No one runs around in capes. No one is like, good evening. I mean, there's none of the Universal or Hammer stuff in it. And that
they walk around in the sun.
Yeah.
And it's the vampire's point of view.
Yes.
It's not the victim. It's not the hunters. It's the vampire's point of view.
Yes. And that's so cool. And I think that's one reason why, I don't know. Okay, so it's like the older films, especially the Hammer films, you have all this like beautiful pageantry and beautiful, gorgeous outfits and hair and it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. It's nice. And, the vampires do their vampire thing. It's very classic. It's very Bram Stoker. And then in the 70s and the 80s, you get the dark vampires that are like, I live in a city. This is my story. And you even get a few fake out ones here and there. But I don't know. It's pretty cool. I like The Hunger. It's a good movie.
And so real quickly before we wrap up,
there
is kind of a sequel.
Okay.
The Hunger, the TV series.
Oh, yeah, but it was like they weren't even the same characters.
No, but so this is I'll tell you. So the reason why I like Hunger the TV series, and I've only seen like 1 or 2, is that they take one of my favorite vampire short stories and make it a story.
Oh.
Which is they did it the double, but I think it was originally I can't remember the original title, but where basically this woman becomes a vampire and her soul dies and her soul is reincarnated 100 years later, and she encounters basically the reincarnation of her soul that she's living in their body.
Oh wow!
And it's got and it's Lori Petty plays the woman.
Huh.
Again, different ending from the short story.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like John is the host.
Okay.
He's sort of the raw. I mean, because it's David Bowie, but they don't say it's John. But it's almost like John is the the Rod Serling character. It seemed to me that was supposed to be the tie that they couldn't say.
I see. It's been a long time since I've seen that series. I think it was like one of those USA ones, like I saw briefly. 1997. I was busy.
You had things to do.
I had things to do.
And I don't know why, but I saw only like tours. But I saw that one with Lori Petty, and I loved it. And I found the short story later, and it was just, I thought, amazing.
Huh.
I think I watched it like when I was living in New Orleans. I don't know. Yeah. Wild times.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, I feel like this film deserves its cult status. It deserves all the love it gets.
Yeah.
Would you?
Oh yeah. No. This movie is a cult classic. This movie, it falls into that category of cult classics that's actually good. It's not a so bad it's good kind of. It's like
I'll never pick those.
Yeah.
It's like I like some of those, but I'll never pick those for my choices for films because I feel like there's so much good stuff to talk about.
Exactly.
That needs love, and people don't always know about it. Like I think that's probably why on my list I also have this movie and The Addiction, which we'll talk about at some other point. But it's another one of those vampire films that nobody has fangs, nobody says vampire. I don't think they may say vampire in The Addiction, but yeah. And The Thirst. Have you seen that one?
No,
I have not seen it. I'm aware of it, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's also really, really good. It's a tough watch, but it's good.
Yeah. So, Dave, this is a question you might be able to answer. Gretchen as well. Is this on the list of like British video nasties, or is this too tame?
I don't think so, because I think it only got an R rating. I think there was some question about them having an X rating because of the lesbianism. But the gore doesn't get it. I mean, I think David Bowie said it was delightfully gory or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
I've never seen it on the list of video nasties. Excuse me. Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Particularly.
All right. Yeah, no, I could, but because of the lesbian aspects and the vampirism, I could imagine early 1980s British government being like, oh, and it's got David Bowie in it. We can't have people seeing this. All right. Okay, so, yeah, that's it for The Hunger. I mean, I feel like we could talk about it for a really long time, but the podcast isn't that long.
And you, our audience, is like 1997 Gretchen. You got things to do.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, to not hold you up any further, dear listeners, I, your humble narrator and co-host, want to let you know that next week we are going to be talking about two terrible old men, not one, but two. The Terrible Old Man in Kingsport, Massachusetts, and a burnt-up weenie by the name of Fred from, I don't know what town he's from, but he does come from Elm Street. We're going to be talking about Nightmare on Elm Street 4. Is that Dream Warriors, or is that...
That's the Dream Master.
The Dream Master, yes.
Wow, I got 2 picks in a row. Woo!
Yeah, well, I scrambled them all up. So, yeah, you get 2 picks in a row. And then after that, I believe it's one of Dave's picks. And then after that, it's one of my picks. And then it's that one that we all decided on.
Sweet. Well, looking forward to talking about this movie. It's, again, one of those, like, developmental year films for Gretchen.
Okay, gotcha.
But we'll talk about The Horrible Old Man, the video game.
Oh, yeah. Yep. All right, everyone. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.
That was a good episode.
Yeah, that was fun.
All right.
I'm just cracking up that it came up to my picks twice in a row. I'm like, oh. Gotta
Oh
pick
yeah.
up. I haven't watched Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4 in a minute. It's like one of my like favorites because it's so, you know, me and my weird sequels. I just really like this film. It's and I'm could come up with some content about it, of course, but
Yeah.
it's a good one.
Very cool. Very cool.
All right, y'all.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for sharing this movie with us. I hadn't seen it in a while.
Oh, I'm so glad you got to see it in its entirety.
Yeah, and it's like I'd only seen bits and pieces of it, and the time that I did sit down to watch it, I kept falling asleep, and everyone's like, "You kept falling asleep," and I'm like, "Oh," because I was like, "That movie didn't make any sense." All right, y'all. I will see y'all next week.
Okay. All right, see you then.
Okay, talk to you later.
Over to you, and if you need the interviews again, let me know.
Okay, cool. Oh, and I just watched the trailer for Blue Beetle.
Yeah.
Have you seen that yet, Dave?
No.
Gretchen? It's one of my favorite DC characters, and it looks like Lovecraftian horror, just like him being introduced to the Beetle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fun.
But
no,
yeah.
I saw Barbie again. I saw the Barbie movie twice now.
Oh, cool. I still haven't seen it.
Oh my gosh, you guys see it, you guys. Seriously, it's so much fun.
That's what I hear.
It's
Sarah
fun.
really liked
it's also
it.
heartfelt and like I don't know. There's just a few. There's like this one phrase that really stands out in the movie, and it's the ghost of Ruth Handler, who is the creator of Barbie.
Mhm.
She is talking to Barbie, and she says, "Mothers stand still so their daughters can see how far they've come." And I was like, it's so heartfelt. And the being Ken enough, or Knuff. Anyways, you guys have a good week. I will.
You too.
I'll talk to you guys on Friday.
All right. Talk to you then.
Thursday.
Happy Labor Day.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. I'll get this right over to you.
Sounds good.